which I'm sure that you've heard a lot about, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't hear from us about it too. So the issue here is that the New York Times released an article at 7 o'clock, I believe last Tuesday at night on their website that lobbies a number or that lobs a number of sort of accusations or criticisms about McCain or presents some evidence that of his ties to lobbyists over the years. But on the right, people say that it's unsubstantiated and has a lot of anonymous sourcing. So McCain immediately came out and responded to this and said that he was disappointed with the New York Times and denied all accusations, including one that he had an affair with a lobbyist. And since then, he won't talk about it anymore. He says he's answered all the questions, but we can certainly talk about it and get opinions on what you guys think about the article. Let's start with you guys. What was your response to the article?
Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to point out that it's not just the right that's attacking the article. There are commentators on all kinds of news network, not just Fox News, including CNN, many people are questioning the validity and the timing of this article. I think this is a smear by the New York Times. It wasn't new news. This is an 8-year-old story, and I think the main problem that they had is that they implied an extramarital affair, which they couldn't substantiate. And, they said things like, they always qualified things like 3 times, like some aides may have been concerned that there might have been an appearance of impropriety. And I think that, like the Keating 5 story is not new, that's an old story. And why was it on the front page above the fold? And I think the reason why they broke it is because the New Republic was going to publish an article about them and beat them to the punch. And I don't think that this article, a lot of the facts are not true.
You think it was a smear job, Thomas?
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, I'm actually a little bit more happy about it because I think in the end it could actually rally conservatives together more or less. Just because I think in the end, if everyone in the conservative world thinks hey, I think mostly thinks the New York Times is a liberal newspaper. So as they see an attack of one of their own, they can figure out ways to come together more or less, at least at this moment. And hopefully longer because of this attack.
And I think the most interesting thing about this is that the New York Times endorsed John McCain in January, knowing all this information about him. And one of the things they said in their editorial about always, standing up and being honest and the best of the Republicans, and then they were just sitting on this story. And I think that is just wrong.
Dan?
Well, there's a bunch of problems with what you're saying. First of all, on your last point, the editorial page did not have this information. The first they found out about...
The public had the information.
No.
December.
No, the editorial page found out about the material that was in the story, and there was some material in that story that I think had not been previously presented that way, including the allegations of the affair, which I'll touch on in a minute. But the editorial page didn't have that information, and they endorsed him independently of the newsroom. And Bill Keller himself has said that some people wish that the editorial page would not endorse specific candidates to avoid complaints like the one that you just made. On the issue of whether or not there was new material here, I think there were several important points that the article made about John McCain. First of all, on the affair, the story they wrote was not John McCain had an affair. It was not we accused John McCain of having an affair. It was we have solid information that John McCain's aides were worried enough that he was having an improper relationship with a lobbyist that they told him not to meet with the lobbyist again. And I think that's a legitimate story to write. And I think it's also legitimate to put that story in the context of John McCain's previous transgressions, which included asking for a special favor for that lobbyist with a federal regulatory body that then sent a letter back to McCain saying that his interference was at the very least highly unusual. And given that McCain's political career has been built, at least lately, on appearing to fight against special interests, against lobbyists, against earmarks, and that sort of dirty congressional politics, it's legitimate to put a story up there like that, especially when the facts make McCain look like a hypocrite. And furthermore, most of the public, I think, does not know a whole lot about the Keating 5 because it happened so long ago. And I think it's important to understand John McCain today, I think, to understand that scandal, and especially in the context of his relationship with the lobbyist. And nobody's disputing those two facts about the lobbyists that were fairly new. At least the first that she had an affair, and the second that
Do you think it was a
intervened on her
journalistically
behalf.
fair article?
I think it was poorly written, but I think it
Very
was
poorly
fair.
written. It was written like tabloid journalism. They said like, embarrassing contradictions, and, they did make, the thing about this journalism is that they implied a lot without saying a lot, without backing it with hard facts. They did imply an extramarital affair. They did not say it was, but they're like, something is going to be concerned about it, which gives the implication that there was an affair.
Well, it
Does
clearly
this harm
says,
McCain? Because obviously he's been able to raise a ton of money based on the reaction.
It would have harmed McCain if the rest of the mainstream media hadn't picked it up as the part of the problem for the New York Times in this case. The New York Times became the story. The press was saying, New York Times attacks McCain. It's not like McCain the story wasn't new information comes out about McCain's relationship with lobbyists. The story was the New York Times attacks McCain. So I think that because of that, it doesn't harm McCain very much. But I don't think that was the intention of the article.
Well, let's switch to the Democrats.